There is what's called the Vimalakirti Sutra in the Buddha's teaching. After the Buddha, it is known that this Vimalakirti Sutra was found a few centuries after the death of Buddha. It's one of the important sutra for Mahayana Buddhism, which is more focused upon wider people to attain Buddhahood. Previous to that, the notion is called Hinayana, aiming for the Arhat, which is to follow the Buddha's way. I believe the reason for this sutra that picked up later was because many people, or most people, who are not in Buddhahood may not be able to achieve Arhat. So Hinayana is more traditional. Mahayana, including this Vimalakirti Sutra, is the original teaching of Buddha. So there's some argument about the state of the sutra, how to be interpreted. But the origin is Buddha's awakening. But the question, like I said, is how to get more people to be related to Buddhahood. Otherwise, Arhat approach may have limitation in terms of number of people who will be affected, as well as the effort that may take without much more explanation. So basically, that's my view of this Vimalakirti Sutra. And I read this 15 years ago or more, and I have lots of underlined part. And since I have been visiting this, I thought I'll just take a look. The main part of this sutra is the word or the phrase I remember so well. It says, "Because people suffer, I suffer." That's the basic principle of Mahayana, and the Zen is very much related, so that this sutra is well known in Zen sect. But having gone through the Shin Buddhism and the Myokonin especially, I found there's lots of element which is very much connected in Shin Buddhism, if we really get the root of it, of what this teaching is. So that's the main finding, and whether I can explain well this 20-30 pages is very questionable, but I wanted to give it a try, also for my own sake too. There may be my misunderstanding, but still it is a good effort to try to clarify my view as far as I can tell. So the beginning start with the Vimalakirti getting sick. So many of the well-known follower of Buddhism came to see what's going on with his sickness. And the sickness is about his sickness on being able to impact or help people. People suffer, therefore he suffer. So people came, many followers came to him to share his view, because Vimalakirti was asking, why you came here and how can you help me? And there, I don't know, maybe several people, one after the other, responding to that, but they failed to clarify if they can help Vimalakirti's sickness. So skipping those maybe several pages, more than that, It came to the point of few sentences that I may be able to refer. One area I can talk about is about the Buddhahood. And what it is that you cannot gain it or throw it away. So there's no waves in your mind. It's the way it is. There's no confusion. It is pure in its original sense. That reminds me of the Pure Land of the Shin Buddhism, this word, pure. It is as if with light and very pure. And in the Buddhahood, there is no understanding. So there's no object to understand. And the Buddhahood is to realize everything has equality in its nature. So there's no varieties of the Buddhahood. Buddhahood cannot be explained by analogy. It's beyond thinking, beyond comprehension. It is subtle. It has a character like a koku, emptiness, vast emptiness. Therefore, it exists everywhere. Koku is the word that Saichi in Myokonin was referring to, which point to the same as much as the light and the notion of the Amida Buddha to save people without any reason, so to speak. Each more into details, very interesting, but to achieve what I thought I want to achieve, will go ahead. There's some description about the basic principle of Mahayana or Bodhisattva related to 6 paramita. Actual point, this is like a play of Monju Bosatsu, which is Shariputra, I think, in English. And he come to visit Vimalakirti. So far as there's that ignorance and the attachment to existence, he has this disease. As far as people have disease, my disease continues. When every people's disease is gone, my disease will be quiet. The reason is that so far as we go through the life of karma, people have its own origin. And that's the reason for the endless cycle of continuing this disease. Now, it's getting more into the core of this teaching. So, Vimalakirti says, because people have those elements, causes the disease. I have the same element in me. And he asked Shariputra, why should you help my disease? And he responded, the body is impermanent. We have to leave from desire. Body itself is suffering, but we need to realize the body has no self. We need to have people to be mature to understand that. Body is empty, but using that as the basis is not the way. But he asks Vimalakirti, how should he respond to your sickness? And this is the beginning of the key point. Responding Vimalakirti is as follows. The disease is coming from the delusionary thought or delusion itself that is caused by the karma that has existed from the beginning of our human existence. But from the ultimate truth, who would become disease? There is no such person. The reason is that in what we are constructed from this body as element, there's no such thing as the creator. What it is, therefore, is that we shouldn't have attachment to the thought and to realize the basic Dharma with non-attachment. Essentially, the body is the gathering of those law nature or Dharma. So when the body is born or exists, it is just the law of nature manifesting, whether it's born or died. That's just the way. There's no notion of something is born or dying. It's just following the law of nature. So there's no such thing that the difficulty is that we have this disease caused by our misunderstanding. In other words, I exist, this is my body, such thinking is a problem. The bottom line of this is that everything is empty. There's nothing, and if we see this everything in equality, he would find disease and emptiness as separate. Disease is empty or emptiness. So when we feel the disease, we think or we feel without feeling, it happens. Therefore, when this feeling is gone, it is enlightenment, and that shouldn't be the case. Because when the Dharma is clearly understood and executed, then receiver of how we feel and the entity that feels, there's no relation to that. But given that, it doesn't say that we don't develop this compassionate sense to save people. We want to have a way so that we understand what this mind is functioning, how it's functioning, and with that we can eliminate the disease. What is the basis of the disease? As far as we have the object, then that's the cause of the disease. How can we get the root of it? And for that, we have to know that don't have the objectives in our mind, which means our view, subjective view, and objective reality, understanding the objective, those two views should not exist. So we don't observe in such a manner. So the sickness itself, if we understand by going through this observation as such, the disease doesn't have any reality, and as such, all the people's disease is not true. It doesn't exist, and we need to see that way. And if we can see this way, that everything is empty, so to speak, then creating this compassionate sense is to point that there is no accomplishment. Because accomplishment of something does not exist if it's empty. If we aim for or look for accomplishing the benefit, and if that's the reason for the compassion, then Bodhisattva should keep on living and dying for that purpose, and it would be too troublesome. It's endless and takes so much energy, so to speak, in my view. It doesn't say about energy, but if it is repeated, it would not be productive, as the sentence here. So when the compassionate sense doesn't get created without looking for the benefit, then Bodhisattva won't feel tired and have birth to live. Which means they are already awakened, understand the emptiness, and yet with that emptiness or awakening, compassionate sense is to be processed. So the point is that body and mind is both impermanent, itself is suffering, empty, no self. Such is the wisdom. So in my view, this corresponds to the four principles, four seal of Buddhahood, which is everything is impermanent, everything is suffering. In essence, it's empty and no self, and that bring out the nirvana state of Bodhisattva. He will talk about the Buddhahood or awakening, but it will not go into the perfect awakened state of Buddhahood, because he is going between the Arahant, the total Buddhahood, and the people in the world, to help people. So this is to help functioning, except he's got the understanding of emptiness as his basic stance. So using that emptiness, yet helping people to get out of the suffering, such is the state of Buddhahood. So that summarizes the Vimalakirti Sutra about his having a pain, because people have pain. But his pain doesn't have any substance, therefore it's empty. That's one. And because empty, even though he suffers, it's not the real suffering, because he knows the uselessness of the pain to impact him, so that he can keep on offering way for people to go through their suffering. Which point that the people need to understand the idea of emptiness of suffering, and that is the way of Mahayana. And I go back to the same point. It was referring to everything is impermanent. There's suffering. There's no self. And you can have the peace, nirvana, as a state that you can attain. And we can work on this continuously, because we're not trying to accomplish in the sense of something, but based upon emptiness, but still has the eternal peace that you can find. I add few things perhaps related to that, because this sutra is very well received in Zen, but it has the same element in Shin Buddhism. As much as I mentioned Saichi and others, he pointed that he can go to Nirvana, Pure Land, pure state, but he can go back to this world. And in that process, he realized the duality of good and bad, and the repentance, and the savior, the joy. So he has the human element as much as element of emptiness that relate to the Buddhahood or awakened state of being everything is Nehanjakujo, the state of nirvana. And that is as if the bridge to fill up between the suffering people, which Saichi understands, and therefore he provides whatever way to share what he can with the sense of compassion. And depending upon the situation, his way of sharing the compassion may be different. But I see other Myokonin have the same notion of helping people beyond their self-centeredness, because Amida's vow, believing Amida's vow is to let go of yourself, no self, and taken over by the compassion of Amida Buddha. So, the point I shared with the notion of Zen and Shin Buddhism has the common ground, emptiness, four seals of Dhamma, suffering, impermanence, no self, and Nirvana. Nirvana in this case is described as the quietness of being in the Buddhahood. And that's the life for Bodhisattva. And Myokonin represent all of that character, that he can bridge the human suffering to live in the Pure Land. Funny expression is, Saichi says, I die every day and I'm happy. It is as if to die his self, to go to the Pure Land. And he doesn't have much difficulty of switching from living this world to the Pure Land and back and forth with the notion of Amida Buddha, Namu Amida Butsu. He let go of him by Amida to take over because of Amida's compassion. That's the relationship of Myokonin or Saichi for this example, as like kids relating to parent. Parent has compassion, no order, just acceptance to get to this state of Nirvana or Pure Land.